flyttade hit från Virserum. English maybe?
Yeah, English please.
Oh, sorry,
It's
sorry.
okay.
It's so hard sometimes when people just say, hey, it's
Yeah.
Yes, this 1920s about workshop, furniture workshop. The building itself was moved here from a town called Virserum in Småland. And basically the building was moved, the machines were sadly enough gone when they moved it here, but the machines are, by looking at the list, we have taken and got the machines that basically what they have. Most of the machines are around 1905 or older. The youngest one though, we have one that's 1930, but the oldest one is 1840. And we use them to build this small table stool and this chair and other different things as well, of course. And this a place like this is kind of known as almost the small beginning of industrialization of furniture in Sweden. In Småland, the farmers were really adept at building furniture because they had a hard time growing food sometimes, so in winter time they would build a lot of furniture. So when the machines became more cheaper and the railways came, they started to build places like this along the rivers. So in the beginning this place was just driven by a water wheel. Then they got a generator driving a central engine, and as time went by they got more and more engines for all the machines. So only one still driven by the central engine is this big planer behind you.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen a machine, so many woodworking machines before, but
Nothing.
basically this one is.
Is it operational?
Yes, everything is operational. We use them. The only thing that's modern here is the suction system and some air protection. And some of the machines we have safer cutters on, since the old ones are really dangerous. Thankfully this has a protection lid when you're driving it. So basically this one is, if you've seen an old planer. So you would begin by using a joiner plane to make one side smooth and put it up against a guide to make it 90 degrees. And this uses this as a reference, and this wheel here, see, this spins really fast, and this feeds the wood in while this shaves away and makes two sides parallel, so you could get a perfect square. And this is also about 100 years old. And a blade like this is the old system, which is nowadays often illegal to use if you have an industry with employees, but a museum can
not only obsolete but illegal.
Yeah, illegal, yes. For safety it is. So this machine would have the same cutter system, but since the blade is spinning in the free, we have changed it to a modern one. And the modern one is round, and right before the knife it has a little ledge. So if you get your finger, it would push your finger out and just shave up a bit. But old one like this would just take your arm.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why it's not safe. So yeah, and in a place like this, they could have up about from 7 to 12 people working. You would have some people setting up the machines, so other people would just work. Then you would have what we call in Swedish bonarjäntor, which are polishing ladies. They were women who applied wax and paint and all the finishing products. And then of course you would have upholstery, wood carvers, often in different buildings of course. They would almost look like a small village, an industry like this. And this place, when they started to make serial production of furniture like this is an example, original from this village, this chair here, and we built, that is a couple we built here. And they were cheap enough so the lower classes could start buying more decorated, beautiful furniture. And it got really popular, so it really exploded and became a big industry. And you would go to a place like this and not just buy a chair, you would buy what we call a garniture, which is a set of furniture. You buy everything you need basically. And this small table or stool here, it represents almost the beginning of the end. It is later, 1920, 1930s. And here is when the decline started of industries like this, much because of the functionalist movement came in and had bigger industries, more, of course, functional furniture, cheaper, and places like this couldn't compete, of course.
And then IKEA came.
Then IKEA came, yeah, precisely. So, yeah, and right now I'm just preparing for assembly these parts. So what we call dry gluing, just checking so everything is fitting together just right before you glue it. So, and that is an important thing about a place like this, that before there would be one carpenter taking the entire process. And of course, with this small industrialization, they started to specialize their employees. And basically, you didn't need so much knowledge anymore. The machines took over many of the knowledge in hand to use. And you would have a bench carpenter who set up the machine so you could take basically anybody, as long as they could push things into a machine.
Yeah.
So that of course made production much cheaper and much easier. Yes. So let's see, right now I'm heating up the glue.
Okay, so you're not using modern glue?
No, we don't use modern glue. And this I'm using now is looks like this in the beginning. It is made from bone. You extract the
Gelatine or something. Gelatine.
yeah, something the binding in the bone. The binding, yeah. Or we could use skin, or another one typical is fish bladder, which is one of the glues that you don't have to
So
heat up.
specific.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, it's really not nice smelling.
Yeah. You could also use fish skin, but the best glue was made from bladders of the fish, the swim bladder of the fish. So before, now we use electricity, but before you would use this table here, which was also the central heating, because you need the moisture in a factory like this to be just right, furniture dry. So you would have a fire here, cooking up steam. Steam would go around, heat up the glue to around 60 degrees, and you would also heat up this table, so you could heat up the wood before you, if you wanted to clamp it together like that. It bought you some more time, because it hardens when it cools down. And then of course it was the central heatings to your storage of the wood, which you took from the lumber mill, because it has to be in the factory for almost, depending on what kind of wood, almost 6 months to a year, so it goes down to around 3%. But this thing made, so a lot of these places of course burnt down, because one of the other modern things we had is the suction system to take away the dust. They didn't have that at that time. They would have people just going around sweeping, and you would have dust and fire, and that's dust fires. And that's one of the reasons why these buildings often were very easily built. You see, they are not very advanced buildings. That's many of these places burnt down, but they were fast to just build them up, build them up, build them up. So, yes. So, as I said, they were always situated along rivers, so they had their own. In the beginning, just water wheel, then they generated. So they made all their own power, of course. And they would also be placed together with different. It would look almost like a small village with other techniques. You would have wood carvers, upholstery, and so if you wanted, like we do on this chair, decorate, you just give the wood carver thousands of these, and he would just roll them up in a row and make the same moment on everyone, so you keep them looking the same because you already have your body in the position. So you go. So you look almost like a machine. It's kind of fun. It's funny when I educated myself in woodcarving, I met this old woodcarver who was 90 years old, and he said, my entire life in woodcarving, basically everybody can see if something is wrong with woodcarving, and basically what most people see is if proportions are wrong and if lines aren't fluent enough. And this man, he had like perfect view of this, but he was so bitter because he said, my entire life I've been training for this perfection, and he made this perfect, but nowadays I can throw away that's perfect because people just want the things I'm not satisfied with, because that's made by hand.
Yeah.
Because if it's perfect, it's not made by hand.
Yeah.
So the culture there is kind of funny that it's changed in that way. This is it's almost like making chocolate. It's smelly. So this is made from bone, and you just heat it up.
Is it ready?
Yeah, almost. I think so. A little bit more. Still a little bit thick. But so that of course you need it, and it's very sensitive to temperature. If you get it too hot, you would just destroy the glue. And you would build something and it would just fall apart later. So let's see. So that's what I'm setting up right now. Put some of these. So we produce these not just to, they are sold, but we produce them mostly to keep. One of Skansen's main purpose is not only to collect and keep material culture, it is also to keep immaterial culture alive, so knowledge, so we do research and everything. And that's one of the reasons why you will see everybody working in all the places and houses. So everything we try to make has to be historically correct. So one of my other jobs here is we are restoring Gothiska Malmgården, which is 18th century or 1700s interior, and then we only work with the tools that was available then, so only hand tools, only hand saw.
But this is difficult to know if tooling of let's say 1750 or 1800
precisely. And that is why we have to do, you cannot just take, oh well, this was about 1700, I will build as I think they did. We have to look at the basically the parts that are there and see how the craftsmen who worked on that specific interior, how they made it. So that's part of the research, so we try to keep it. And of course these products here are chosen from this city. So they are, this one is original from Visurum, this chair here, and that behind there is a copy we made here. Often you would not see them with acanthus. Acanthus is this kind of decoration you have there. Often more common would be an apple, which is really, if you go to a flea market, you will see a lot of these. Because of course the places like this and lower classes could start to buy furniture like this. It became very popular and very common. So
how many hours do you need to produce such a chair?
If I would just go and straight up produce and not talk and not be careful with the old machines, I could probably take it down to about 30 minutes per
30 minutes.
30 or 40.
So you would produce, let's say, 50 of them?
Yes.
work a whole week in making.
Yes, but basically that's not our purpose.
Yeah.
So it can go really, really fast, but it's not. Places like this, they were fast and they produced a lot, but when the functionalist movement came and with the government backing them up, they took in, well, we call them designers today, but they had architects and artists to make beautiful furniture that were specifically made for industry, so they can produce much faster pace.
Yeah.
And they often were better products because they had they started in functionalist movement in Sweden studying ergonomics. So that would be the start of the fall of places like this, because we would produce a lot of these furniture, but they were often not functional, heavy, maybe hard to clean, and we had a lot of problem with disease. So the functionalist movement really pushed for easy to clean, easy to move, don't buy an entire set, you buy what you need. So that would be the beginning of the end of places like this. Even though they were fast, they weren't fast enough. But it would take a while for places to disappear. You could see places like this up into the 40s, 50s, but after that they were very uncommon. You would see there are still workshops in this size that make kitchens and interiors and stuff, and machines are basically the same. The only thing that's changed is the numbers of employees and safety. And sound, of course. Some of these machines are actually illegal to use in an industry of with keeping safety in mind. You can't have machines like this if you have employees, because you have to take responsibility for it. So, but as a museum, we don't.
But you still have all your fingers. So I
Yes,
guess
well, we have made some changes. Well, we have air protection and we have the suction system, so we don't damage our lungs.
Yeah.
And as this is a joiner plane, it has knives going around here and push woods here. And here we have a modern blade. And the modern blade, it's hard to see, but it's round. And what that does, it prohibits your finger from going in the machine. So it pushes out your finger a little bit before it cuts. But with this machine had this old system before, when this place started, but this is extremely dangerous. Thankfully, this has a lid like that. The problem with this old machine is that
What's only with this?
this one is the only one still driven by the central engine over there.
No, but it's running only when this one is down.
Well, you can start it like this if you want. It has no safety in that way.
Yeah, sometimes you can do a mechanical stuff.
Yeah, so you just twist it so it spin really. And this is the feeder.
Okay. So you don't have to push it? Or
No, well, you push it a little bit, but you don't have to. It will feed itself.
What does it do, this machine?
I can show you, basically. It is a planer. It does what the name implies. It's let's see, I have some.
it's not IKEA? IKEA? IKEA?
IKEA?
IKEA kills shops like this.
Yes. No. They died long before IKEA.
Yeah. Yeah, but IKEA made it perfect.
IKEA.
Does it cut
The biggest problem is not the furniture that they killed, it's more the material
Yeah.
industry, because they took over, they made their own material, their own veneer. So we have no production of veneer in Sweden anymore, because IKEA would make it cheap and sell the good quality very, very, very cheap and keep the bad quality for themselves. But nowadays they keep the good quality as well. So it's gotten really expensive with some materials. So this of course is the height of the board. And you begin by using a joiner plane to make one side plane and one side 90 degrees by using, now it's not set, it's set on the a saw blade right now. It's a combination machine. But basically, it uses this as a reference.